Hello, everybody. This is Justin Case of American Newscape. We're joining our friend Scott Dudley, who brought us a great topic for this show for American consciousness. Hello, Scott. Welcome back to American Newscape.
Justin, so good to be here. New subscribers, welcome. And I know we have some because I actually helped them click it into their phones. So
Now we do
and
have
and,
some.
and I paid them, the usual $50 fee to join us. So
We did not pay for the subscribers, and we
no,
do
no,
get,
we got reverse sponsorship now.
and Scott, you and I have enough trouble with YouTube because we dare use the word consciousness in the title of our show. So we must be bad.
Is that a trigger word?
That or American. So I believe in American consciousness is not a good thing.
Well, but we can only speak from our frame of reference, right?
Well, that's
And
all we
as
do.
conscious beings who live in the continent of America, I think we're good.
Well, and people can find confidence that some of our shows have been marked risky content.
I'll
Yeah.
wait till today.
Don't tell Luna. Don't tell
We're,
Luna.
we're going to get the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune from every which way,
Okay.
uh, because because I think the point at the end of the show is going to be not whether you've been sold out, but how you've been sold out. There will be no survivors today.
Well, indeed, there are no survivors, and yes, we've all been sold out many times over.
Yeah. I mean, and looking at that, potentially can make it better. So we're going to go deep into the briar patch, way down the rabbit hole, and see what we can get, because we're going to talk today about personal sovereignty. That is the ability to maintain a space in your life, in your consciousness, in your head, in your mind, in your body, that is yours to do with as you wish and isn't subject to other people's influences in
Well,
any way, shape, or form.
absolutely. Especially if all that behavior is not an endangerment.
Oh, and that it gets tricky there. We'll see if we can get to that, because that's a very interesting space. So the reason that this came up was because there's a lot of people jumping and shouting and twisting in the wind and uh, getting very excited. Some of them anxious, some of them scared, some of them extremely happy right now. And what's happening is that you want to embrace. You want to be part of the interconnectedness of the world. And so you open yourself up to all of this energy, and it can be overwhelming. So there's a lot of overwhelmed people right now. And that was what came up, because a lot of people were, coming to the dog park and talking about the degrees and the ways in which they felt just pushed by all the energy, not necessarily inside of themselves, but around them. So much so that they're starting to withdraw, they're starting to put up barriers, they're starting to stop listening to stuff, stop paying attention to stuff. And that is perhaps an important step to regaining your space.
Well, every week Jerry Maldonado and I do a show, and basically that's the focus of it. You don't have to be the group, or you don't have to buy in or bite the hook.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And as a longtime listener of that show, I just can only hope to duplicate some of that energy. So, here's where I'll put it into American consciousness zone. I believe pretty strongly that if you are fully sovereign, that enables you to be interconnected indiscriminately with the rest of the world, with the trees, with the plants, with the cats, with the dogs, with the Muslims, with the Christians, with the dudes, with the girls, with everything. But you can't do that unless you're really sovereign, unless you've got your own space clear, and you've gotten all this clutter out of the way that people try to dish on you. to get you to go zoom, 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 as you suggested, all the trolling to see which hooks you're going to bite on.
Well, yeah, I buy that, except for, if you want to be sovereign in your mind, I mean, I believe you can allow your mind to go where it wants, and you don't have to be susceptible to outside influence, right?
Right. So when your mind goes where it wants, if it heads in a discriminatory way, and if you think about it, discriminatory can have very simple level. Do I want tuna fish or peanut butter and jelly for lunch? That's a point of discrimination. So it's not necessarily the big stuff, but it is the big stuff. But the minute that you begin to kind of say, well, these are my people and these are not my people, or this is my point, this is my desired point of view reference, and this is not, then you can almost bet that somebody has gotten inside your head and messed with your sovereignty. Because indiscriminate is indiscriminate. And as an indiscriminate being, if you will, you're able to have tuna fish or peanut butter, and that's going to be fine. It probably depends on what's in the cupboard. But you're also going to be able to look at people who do things that right now you hate. And that could be anything. And you're going to be able to look at those people and say, I wonder how they got to the place in their lives where they thought that this was okay. Whether it's hoarding wealth or trumpeting your beliefs or whatever. And if we look at it, if we break it down, we can see ways in which we've been divided and conquered and fed information in ways that has led us to the beliefs that we're using to discriminate. That's the punchline.
Well, okay, but I don't see where that has anything to do about my sovereign self. If we have gone down a wayward path, as long as a wayward path of beliefs, as long as we don't impugn others for not believing what we believe or impose our beliefs on others, I don't see where I've broken a rule.
What if your beliefs come from somebody selling you a false bill of goods?
I don't think it matters.
Because the beliefs discriminate. Because the beliefs say that that I do Jesus, not Muhammad,
No, no,
or
no.
I do this, not that.
Well, I understand.
Peanut butter. No.
I understand that, but we're talking about my sovereign safe space in my mind.
Right. But what if your safe space? What if your sovereignty has been corrupted? What if you've downloaded some bad files?
Well, there's no,
Is it truly sovereign, or is it just somebody else's parroting getting into your skin, getting into you, and like a virus, you carrying it forward and saying, "This is what I believe based on what I believe because I'm a sovereign person." That's why this is so tricky.
well, yeah, but we're talking about as long as we don't impose those beliefs on others.
But we're imposing it on ourselves. Isn't that like the first sin?
No, I'm not buying that. Sovereign is a dangerous word because we've all seen those people that are interacting with police officers and they're pulling out that I'm a citizen of nowhere. I am a sovereign individual. I don't respect your laws. And that doesn't turn out well for them.
Right. So if we're judging them, and that's exactly where we go, because we've been trained ever since we were little kids that Mr. Policeman, what can I, policeman, I walk the street with you, or whatever the rhyme went. We've been taught that cops are duly authorized authority figures, and it's our job to follow it. So, in a sovereign perspective, if we're indiscriminate and we're saying, you know what, I love those people just as much as I love people who never break the law, just as much as I love the guy who just blew off a red light and then turned without signaling in front of me on the way home today to do the podcast. And the indiscriminate point becomes, as a sovereign person, I can look at them and I can say, something led them to this pattern of beliefs. And rather than just judge them as wrong or less able or less human or less valuable, or maybe they should all just go to jail, or maybe the sovereign people need to be taken out and put in a detention camp. Maybe I could just figure out how to love them in spite of the fact that life has led them to some pretty odd choices that I don't understand.
Well, that's your subconscious Christian coming out of you, Scott.
Oh my
love
goodness.
all of God's creations.
May lightning strike me.
No, you love all of God's creations, but
Yeah, but that's not Christianity. Hello.
no, no, it isn't.
Vengeful God, baby. Vengeful God. God's going to kick your butt.
No, 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 no. It's
Oh,
love
animals don't
all.
have souls. Christianity is animals don't have souls.
No,
They're not going to heaven.
you can pick and choose, but there is a verse in the
And,
Bible
and,
that's
and they do, and that's part of the problem, right?
well, no, there's a verse in the Bible that says love all of God's creations. That was basically written to remind you to love yourself. But off topic. Back to so you're wanting to act like Big Brother. You don't want to really allow me my sovereign thoughts.
No,
You no 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 no. You want to tell me where they
fair.
came from. You
That's
want to tell
fair.
me where they came from, and you want to tell me that I'm wrong because
Not wrong.
I don't know. You want to judge?
We're all in the same boat. That's
Absolute.
and you're pointing it that way, and I get it. But the trick is, if we don't question our own sovereignty, including how did this belief come up? I mean, ultimately, now I'll circle back to religion because I think religion's one of the big players here. Our religious is like 98% of our religion, if we choose to subscribe to that, is based on the religion of our parents. The only reason that we've adopted a faith is because mom and dad put it in our oatmeal when we were four. And that seems like that seems pretty not sovereign.
Well, I developed my spiritual beliefs over time, and I was exposed to things. I mean, I was sent to Christian Sunday school and given a sword and told to march in circles and sing "Onward, Christian Soldiers." And even as a child, I thought that was pretty peculiar.
There's the little kind of contradiction there, huh?
Well, it was just peculiar. So I didn't have to go to Sunday school anymore.
I mean, Crusades, Inquisition. What are we doing here?
Yeah, and one of the classic ironies of the world was Mel Brooks's song about the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. He got it, but ultimately, where did you end spiritualize? Did you end anywhere?
I did, but that is a sovereign comfort zone for me, and I don't preach it. I don't impose it on others. If someone needs to know, I'll share that information, but nobody needs to know.
Can you cite like primary sources?
No, I can't because it developed over time and experiences.
It
So
was a, it was a it was a Playboy magazine interview with.
Asa Barber. It was probably a column that Asa Barber wrote in Playboy.
Okay, okay, that works. You so sovereignty could be as flawed as you want it to be,
Yes.
right? And that's why people get really strange beliefs. But I think it's fair to let people know that if they've got a belief about something, it probably came from somewhere, and that somewhere had a reason for selling you the belief.
Well, I agree. Scott, one of our greatest commonalities is we look at groups of opinions, or
And
uh,
red flag them.
yes, absolutely, because it's a group. It's what you're talking about, what we need to protect ourselves from. We both believe in independent thought, and we both respect each other's independent thought, even though we don't always agree.
No, and but we're both willing to, I think, to do the work, and that's what a lot of the. I mean, I'll give you another example. Um, Russia is evil, or China is evil, or immigrants are bad. What we've done in those is a pretty common flaw in logic, and that is we've associated everybody with a single thing.
Well,
And whenever that happens in terms of and it affects our sovereignty, because if I wake up in the morning thinking that any of those groups are somehow generally good, bad, or indifferent, then I've fallen victim to the misinformation that all Chinese are like out to hack my computer, which of course is nonsense.
well, of course, And this channel's reasonably political, and all the comments on this channel get responded to. And there's a pattern of them. If somebody wants to say the reason we have all the problems in the world is because of one political party or the other, I say, yeah, exactly. Really? And if the comment is all Democrats are bad, that is not true. If the comment is all Republicans are bad, that is not true. And that's how I respond. I go, not all. Not
Well,
all.
but the political parties also want to sell that to your sovereignty. They want you to be able to group the us versus them. I mean, that was like chapter 2 in 1984, was that you need to have an enemy, and it's good cop, bad cop. You need to have a focusable other side. And it's funny because I ended up sadly on some blue contribution lists because of a single blue contribution I made once 1,000 years ago. And they send me emails now asking for money. And I said, you know what? I pretty much suspect that you guys let this all happen because you knew that this would be the perfect fundraising foil. And now you're using it to make money off of me. And I said, I'm not that guy. Sorry.
Well, it's kind of like those, if we watch a PETA commercial on television or a video, what are they doing? I mean, they're pulling at our heartstrings.
Oh yeah, and Peter's got some pretty, again, people that I have difficulty empathizing with,
Right.
right? But they've also got some really kind-hearted, loving people too. So again, it's not a
Absolutely.
it's not a unanimous group of people. It's a group of diverse people.
Absolutely. Some of them will say all chickens need to be set free, so we don't need eggs, and the chickens can just fend for themselves out in the wild.
You could still get the eggs. It's going to be a little harder to gather them. But
Well, I don't know. I don't think the chickens would do well in the wild. They just won't. But they're passionate about that, and they believe it with such passion. You pause to listen to them. But when I listen to them, I'm not judgmental, and I'm not impacted by it at all. I'll eat eggs.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
So,
if I could afford them, I'd eat them. But yeah,
so are those skills that you and I have developed?
I think it's a commitment, and I think it's a commitment to critical thinking. But then I think it's also really useful. I wouldn't even brought it up today if I didn't think it was useful to frame your sovereignty as a discrete concept. To say, I've got this space of me, and I need to keep that space as uncluttered, as uh, truthy, fact based, as emotionally fair, if not more detached. And I see the world coming in a lot of different doors, trying to get me to zig and zag, trying to impact, trying to infiltrate my sovereignty with beliefs that are nonsense.
Well, and Jerry and I are always saying turn it off. You don't have to. Social media is putting you in a sour place, in a non-productive place. Just turn it off. You're not responsible to social media.
But but they like my stuff. That those are my friends.
Well, they like some of our stuff, Scott, and a lot of them may not be our friends. I hate to tell you that.
You know, one of the more disappointing things to me about social media is I'll get a group of friends. I mean, currently the fun one is Blue Sky for me, and because it's really easy to get followers, um, and I will post things on a daily basis, and sometimes it's a cat picture, and sometimes it's a cool rock, and sometimes it's something I wrote about metaphysics 15 years ago, and I may get a single like. You know, if I drop something clever into somebody else's thing that's getting 1,000 likes, then I may get a lot of likes. But ultimately, all those followers could care less about me and don't know anything about me.
No,
And
absolutely.
and that's kind of disappointing because I thought that's where I was going to find deep, lasting, abiding friendships.
Well, no, you didn't. You're lying to us, Scott. And for everybody out there that hasn't visited Scott's Facebook page. You should, and it is interesting. But what Scott really likes to do is play the devil's advocate, which is, in essence pissing on your Cheerios the way he does it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and on everybody's Cheerios,
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
even my own, and I think that's important because if you cannot hoist yourself on your own petard, then you're really not trying, are you?
I agree, Scott, and it doesn't affect my sovereign self. Sometimes it's actually funny.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, it's difficult, I think, because one of the things that impacts our well-being, impacts our sovereignty, is being pushed towards certain groups of people and pushed to dislike other groups of people. So ultimately, instead of being interconnected in a more broad scope kind of open basis with the world, so you can look at somebody who's like really weaponed up or whatever it is and say, you know what, they don't feel really safe. It's like, how did they get to the point where they thought that arming themselves with high powered weapons was going to help them or be even a wise use of their money when eggs are so expensive? And so, but getting to that point, or getting to the point of how somebody could be to support Black Lives Matters, which again, it's another very diverse group of people. You know, some of those people are legit and very helpful and doing very good stuff in the community. Other people are trying to make money. Other
Right.
people use it just as posturing, you know, as like values thing. Like, oh, look at me, I'm one of them too.
Well, yeah, but we get back to Black Lives Matter turned into an industry for people to make a lot of money, and that's what it.
For some people, for a limited number,
Right,
because again, whenever there's a lot of money, only a couple people are going to be making it. That's
right.
pretty much fact.
But there are some very credible foundations, but the Civil Liberties Union is another one. I mean, a great libertarian cause, but it falls off the rails every once in a while because it gets in the way of them making money.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and to make money, they have to trigger you emotionally.
Yes, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
they have to get you outraged.
Right.
So one of the things about your sovereignty is whenever you feel outraged about anything, you could just say, "This is an attack on my sovereignty. You're trying to get in my head and trying to get me to believe certain things about certain groups of people."
Or you can say what a lawyer once told me many years ago when I pointed out some flaws in his logic that I was impugning his integrity.
Well, if it were deliberate, then I would say yeah, because integrity has kind of a foundation to it that you know, if you know better, you shouldn't be doing it.
Well, absolutely. And, it really doesn't go hand in hand with the legal profession.
And
And
if he's saying that he's impugning your integrity, that's an ad hominem attack on your character, which means he's just trying to distract you from the actual concerns at hand.
no, but bring it back to point of fact. I was telling him, he told me that I was impugning his integrity by
Right,
questioning him. By questioning him.
right. So he's taking the focus off of whatever you were questioning him about and putting it on your judgment of his integrity, which you hadn't even really thought about until all of a sudden that became the topic of conversation.
Absolutely. And he
Yeah,
wasn't he wasn't really offended until I started laughing.
good. Well, because you protected your sovereignty in a critical
Yes.
moment.
Yes. And I found humor in that moment.
Because if he'd gotten under your skin, that again, it's like they're getting inside you. You know, they're getting inside your space and getting you to hate or dislike or make judgments or whatever. Whereas if you can laugh at it and say, well, you know, and ultimately I would say compassion. You
Yeah.
know, what led this person to believe that this was a healthy way to interact with other human beings? There must be a story here somewhere. Because I
Absolutely.
know, you know, when they were 3 years old, they thought everybody was good and they were very nice to people and didn't care.
Well, no, no, Scott, not necessarily. We all have known 3-year-olds that were just, I don't want to say rotten to the core because that would be judgmental, but are just ornery children.
So you're a believer in the bad seed theory, right?
Well, no,
Like
I-
kids are just born to be bad.
I'm a believer in retroactive abortion, but
Yeah,
for
there you
some,
go. You know, the trick with 3-year-olds is you know, it's, and you see it in the dog park all the time. And I'm going to get in trouble with certain cultures because comparing people to animals is considered like bad form. But we're just like there are differences in humans. There are differences in dog breeds.
Oh yeah.
And if you take a border collie and you expect it to act like a quiet, disciplined lap dog, you're going to be in for disappointment. And ultimately, the tools that you got to get your lap dog to just be sit quietly and wait for treats aren't going to work on the border collie because that's not its nature.
Right.
And I think humans deserve that same space.
And border collies run into the obstacle that the vast majority of border collies are more intelligent than their owners.
Well, they come in at about 3 to 4 years of age.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, they can make sentences. They understand words, and they're very good at behaviorism.
Right.
So they're very, like we use like treats to get a dog to sit or whatever. They use their behavior to get humans to do whatever they want, which cats are really like the experts at that.
Oh, absolutely. And you and I both know cats and understand them. And I work with my cat. I work on his vocabulary every day, and I'm always surprised at what he can learn.
They've got cats that use the little pet button pushing things now to communicate. Which, of course, I've always gone backwards on that. I'm like, you know what? I'm the grown up in the room. I need to learn how to speak cat. They don't need to learn how to speak human.
Well, I would suggest to people they may not want to know what their cat has to say the vast majority of the time.
And people will ask me like, "How many cats do you own?" I'll say none, but I
Yeah,
tend to.
yeah, exactly.
I serve them.
Right, right, right. But we have welcomed them into our sovereign self.
Oh, absolutely. And part of that is again back to beliefs, right?
Hmm.
I believe fairly strongly that all living beings deserve respect, deserve a chance to be understood, deserve space to be safe, enough food to live, enough shelter to survive. And I'm not going to, draw the line on feral cats or draw the line on, I let spiders go. I walk them to the door and say, you know what? I realize it's warmer inside, but I also realize that you bite.
Well, I'm pretty good there with animals and critters, except for roadrunners.
Were you the coyote or what?
No, they're just for people that watch Jurassic Park, they are raptors, and we're lucky they don't weigh 40 pounds because they would be killing
They,
us.
you wouldn't have any 3-year-olds to worry about.
Oh no, or adults, they would be killing us, and they would come in groups if they needed to. They're the top of the predator chain in their world.
That is actually one of the dark secrets about birds. Is they are mean and cruel, and they don't take no prisoners. They are very very driven killers of whatever they're eating.
I I walked into the house probably a few years back, and I said, "A grackle just pooped on me, and it was deliberate." And then when we research them, they can actually throw their poop.
Nice, like monkeys in a zoo. How cute.
And I thought, how evil, but what a fascinating bird.
They're beautiful. They make pretty sounds. I don't get a lot of them where I live because they need takeoff space, so they don't like low foliage. And I've got a lot of low foliage. I've got I don't know if you know your birds or not, and this is kind of another chapter on the show. I've got a loggerhead shrike who's taken up residence in my front yard
No,
and totally run off the mockingbirds and everybody else who like mealworms to eat. This single little bird, smaller than a mockingbird, can eat like an entire package of mealworms in one sitting, and still kind of bug you for more. But what a little aggressive, nasty little bird, boy.
but you love it.
He's a punk, man.
Do you call him Beavis or Butthead or what?
I actually call him Bill because shrikes have this amazing hawk-like bill, really sharp, and they're actually known as butcher birds because they capture prey like lizards and impale them on sharp sticks for eating later.
Wow, I like that bird.
Oh, it's got some class, and it's kind of fun to have it around. But the mockingbirds are not pleased.
Okay, okay.
They were the brutal killers that ran the roost, and now they've been, kind of second stage.
Well, and a lot of beloved birds are very, very nasty, and they surprise us. The American eagles in the Grand Canyon were happy and content and productive, and then Arizona Game and Fish thought that they would release 5 pairs of condors into the Grand Canyon.
Which were historically there, right? I mean, that's part of their historic range
Maybe. There's no evidence of that, but maybe. But it seemed like a good place to the biologists.
because it's got big cliffs and stuff, right?
Right. And I got a call from the game branch supervisor, said, "You'll never believe." And she and I always laughed about these repopulation efforts. You never believed what happened to the condors we released. I go, "What happened?" She said, 7 of them are dead. So 7 out of 10 of them are dead within 3 weeks. I go,
That happens on a lot of renaturalizing stuff, and I'm not sure if it's location dependent. It's just really hard to take something that hasn't lived in an area and put it in an area. They have to
well,
figure out a lot of things quickly.
well, they did figure something out. They figured out that American eagles in their own range don't like bigger birds introduced there, and they were happy to kill them.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the things that they'll figure out is that there are things out there that want to kill you,
Yeah, yeah,
and are more would be more than happy to see your corpse and pick at it.
right. So, but I've gotten us off topic. I do like this topic. What did you learn from the people at the dog park?
Well, next week we'll do humans are the invasive species. So we'll pocket this one and bring it back. It got interesting at the dog park because everybody had their own slice of pie. And so instead of this interconnected to everything and everybody, it's I'm pushed to be interconnected to the people who accept me and befriend me and share my belief systems. And that is amplified. I think that's what we got when we talked about it. Was that there may be a natural tendency to hang out with your friends basically, and but when it's pushed that way, so like for example, we have some LGBTQ members in the dog park,
Sure.
and they were able to talk about uh, I'm pushed into my community because it's kind of implied that that's the only place that there's safe refuge. And as we talked about it, we were like, you know what? 80% of the people in the world could care less, and will accept you for who you are, and they may not want to date you if you're the same sex, but that's okay. You don't want to date them either. They're not going to like you. You're not going to like them. Um, and so, but and then from a interconnected perspective, if there are people out there who actively hate you and want to destroy your culture or deny your existence or deport you or whatever, then you start with compassion, you start with empathy, and you say, okay, how did people believe that this was so problematic and that we were so dangerous to them just because I married someone the same gender as I? How am I bringing their world in some way? And then you can go back to the sovereignty thing, and you can go back to the messaging and the amplification and the clarion calls throughout their community that this is a clear and present danger to American society, and if we don't address this, everybody's going to be gay, which of course is not going to happen.
Well, and
Or if it
vice.
does happen, the two straight people in the world are going to be really happy.
Well, or but that knife cuts both ways. Gay people have been around probably since there were 5 people in the
Evil,
in the
right? Yeah.
cave.
At the minute there were 5 people, one of them was gay. That's pretty much.
Well, or showed those tendencies, and that was
Yeah,
long
absolutely.
before marriage was ever an issue. And there's societies that have no issues with that community. There's religions that have no issues with that community, and there's churches that have no issues with that community. But They want to make it a battleground issue. It's like when everybody was trying to force me how to
But
think.
okay, you're right. But you're back to the general they again, and that's that there may be some activists in the LGBTQ community who really want to push the issue, who
Right.
want to make it, who want to attack the sovereignty of people by getting people to overbelieve,
Right.
to get overexcited about it, to fearfully react to it, or fearfully feel outraged that their rights are being denied.
You're absolutely right.
And
They've,
that's like four people. The rest of the people, they're just hanging out.
well, maybe more than that, but, and that's become an industry too. I
Absolutely.
think every time we attach this as an industry to anything, it's dangerous.
So some of this is tied to capitalism as well. The big player in the
No,
game.
no, not. It's not. It's when it becomes an industry.
But why would you do it without profit? I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
Well, not necessarily. Look at the Dalai Lama. Money comes his way. He's not an industry. He's a
No, but
belief.
he's in it for the Benjamins.
I'm not sure of
Otherwise,
that.
he'd be in a cave meditating, right?
I'm not sure of that. I think he's in it for the glory. And there's people
Uh,
like that. We've had U.S. presidents that didn't take a salary, so they weren't in it for the money directly.
unless they were getting paid some other way, right?
Well, maybe, but they were certainly getting paid something. Whether it was emotionally or something. But it's just when it's an industry. Rally around, even if it's rally around the flag and it's an industry. People need to step back and get back in their safe sovereign place and say, do I really need to buy into this?
Yeah, I would say that whenever you've got something that has organized into a donate here group,
Yeah.
that
Or else.
you yeah, or else your world's going to fall apart, or else the evil people are going to take over, or which again, there's a whole fear base that they're attacking your sovereignty,
Yeah.
and it's like at that point you need to detach and say, okay, this. They're just trying to get me to you know, yeah, and what's the truth to any follower? If they look up, they're just going to see the asses of the people in front of them.
No, you're exactly right. And that's not their sovereign space.
No,
That,
and yeah,
no matter who, no matter who you're worshiping, whoever you're idolizing, you need to really sit back and assess.
and as Arizona Cardinal fans, we can attest to the hard lessons learned.
Well, yeah, kind of, but
I mean, because that's it. It's facetious, right? But how do you think the NFL generates revenue? They generate revenue by building fan bases. Was a fan base? It's a discrimination. It's like I don't like football. I like the Lions.
yeah,
You know, and so I'm going to pay $129 for like a wannabe varsity jacket thing, so I can be like Eddie Murphy on Beverly
well,
Hills Cop.
yeah, but I don't care as long as you don't put that on me. If you came to me and said, I want you to address me as a Lions fan, well, then I'd have a problem.
Well, I had all the Lions gear boxed up to give to you, but I'll figure something else.
You can keep that, but I do have a friend that is very passionate about her Detroit Lions.
Well, it's been a long suffering journey for all of us. So
Well, it's been it's been a journey and it's been a distraction, and maybe we had our expectations tied to some result that we were never going to be guaranteed.
no, you know what I would actually say it's better to go 2-12 and in October realize that you're playing for draft choice than it is to go 15-1 and lose in the second round.
Well, yeah, maybe, but
I'd rather be lovably mediocre than a great failure.
the consummate failure. But yeah, but if failure is in their part of their sovereign self and they're content in it, I'll allow them that.
Yeah, but again, it's divide and conquer. And so if you can build fan bases, you can build revenue bases.
Well, yeah, but
And then, then it's about the Benjamins.
well, think about the horrors of when I was a pretty, reasonably acclaimed baseball coach. There was, I invaded all of the sovereign selves of everybody that wanted to play baseball for me.
Yes. As a coach, I will confirm that too. And because if you're showing up voluntarily, you're mine.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And that's part of it too. They could have turned it off. They could have gone and played maybe in kinder waters. But
Yeah, no.
but
It's so much different than work supervision because they're willingly there.
right. And we were all had a goal to try and accomplish something.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to buy in. If you don't buy in, you're cancer on the team.
Well, yeah, and as a coach, you can't help those people, and that's why you're coaching. There is no glory in coaching. And let me
Wait,
rephrase.
that extra 5 laps and 80 push-ups didn't help that person?
No, it did. The running 2 miles in 112 degrees was helping the pitchers build up their leg strength.
Well,
So
I
they
didn't use it for building strength. I used it for punishment.
well, no, see, Scott, that I didn't do that. I did tell them that they were going to run, so we could call it punishment if they felt comfortable in that. But they were going to run anyway.
I'd be like, "Are you looking at me right now? You're not looking at me. Take a lap. When you get back here, I want to see those eyes."
What happened to you, Scott? At least
Those were 8-year-olds.
at least you've matured.
Well, no, my team was really good.
Well, so was mine. I couldn't
It
coach.
it it, it was tough love. It was the Tom Izzo school of coaching.
Well, I couldn't coach 8-year-olds because they did not have an attention span that I could accept.
You know what? I felt that it's funny. This is one of my like human service moments or whatever. I did it because these were all like super at-risk kids, and they were all like out on the streets every day after school.
Hmm.
And so if I could get them over to practice for a couple of hours, give them some self-discipline skills, and in the end get some W's as a coach, that was all good. Plus, but our head coach had a gold card for the local Playboy Club, and we would have our coaching meetings in the Playboy Club. And as a 19-year-old, I was like, "Let's do this."
Okay. And you peed on everybody's sovereignty.
Right. I would walk in there and the women who were in the education program with me at Michigan State, because I was still going to school back then, they'd look at me and they'd do the biggest double take, like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm here hanging out with the coach. What are you doing here?" "Paying for school." "Okay, we're good."
Yeah, that paying for school thing still goes around, I assume.
I've got monthly payments that will last until I am whatever happens next.
Well, it was worth it, Scott. We're glad you did it.
And ultimately, it's again back to your sovereignty. Getting all dialed up about money is one of those areas, and look at people from an empathy standpoint. Look at people who are over engaged with money or under engaged with money. So the under engaged are getting beat up by the system because they lack resources, and they get caught in this circular trap where they're always going to be, paying interest on stuff and you know, because poor is something we need in this country. It helps fund capitalism, so we're going to do it. But look at the people who hoard money. It's like you've got $1 million and 40,000 people starved in the world today, and you couldn't have kicked in 10 grand to keep them all alive. It's like, how did you get to think that was okay? And there's a story there.
Well,
Maybe they didn't get dessert as a kid. I'm not sure.
well, possibly, Scott. But if that's their sovereign self and they're it's a happy space for them with that belief system, as long as they don't impose it on others, I don't have a problem with them.
Even if they're killing people with their wealth.
Why? See, I'm not in a position to judge that. The
Well, the dead people are though.
well,
It's
no,
like they're,
they're
they're dying of hunger. They're dying of unmet
no,
needs. And
they're
here's a person with the resources to get the needs. Why wouldn't they feel compelled to do that?
well. Then I see the felons of the world as these big governments. And once these big governments are challenged, they'll rear their ugly heads and fight at all costs.
Well, indeed, and I think one of the things that wealthy people have figured out is once they own the governments are much more accommodating to their hoarding tendencies. So,
Well, right, as if, and it's worldwide. It's just not in our country,
mhm.
but if
Oh no, absolutely.
it's the military industry or it's pharma,
It is globalism in its own dark future.
absolutely. And it wasn't very many years ago that our whole country was being pushed towards globalism.
Oh, absolutely. The banks are too big to fail.
Well, they're not too big to fail if the government keeps bailing them out.
Well, but that's the justification the government uses, but they don't use that when you or I can't make mortgage payments.
No.
We're not. It should be you're too small to fail because you've got no other resources. We're going to take care of you. Whereas like the big people could like just borrow more money, right? I mean, their credit's good.
Well, yeah, and it was. I've covered press releases for a long time, particularly from the White House. But it was when one well thought of president all of a sudden started putting out these press releases blaming others for everything. It became the trend.
So I'm going to just say this: if you get a government press release, that should tingle your red flags for sovereignty
Not
like immediately.
not
Because
necessarily.
they have no reason to share information with you other than to shift and dictate how you believe the world is. And they're going to cherry pick that information to change your mind.
See, I think that was something that came along. I think that's something that happened in time. If you look at leaders of this country like Truman and Teddy Roosevelt, they spoke their minds, they spoke their conscience.
Yes, they did, and it hadn't been weaponized to the degree that it's weaponized today.
Right, absolutely. So things have changed, and maybe it was a better time. I don't
Well,
know.
for some people, not for everyone.
I don't know that. If we could all go back in time, which we can't, then we could assess it.
But we could talk to our neighbors who had their ancestors in that same time and got stories passed along their ancestral tree and take those, as their truth and go for. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you're right, absolutely right that we can't personally do that.
Right.
But I know what my grandparents went through growing up, and I'm sure they know what their grandparents growing up. And if we sat down over coffee and talked about that, we might be able to triangulate some real data, as opposed to what history written by the victors shows us in books, which that you have to take that stuff with a grain of salt too.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was in grade school, we were disproving history then, and it was that old game children used to play, sending the secret around the table to see how, by the time they had circled the table, would been whispered around the table what that message was, and that still
Oh,
exists
dude,
today.
social media was like Dylan plugging in electric with that stuff.
Yeah.
It took the nice, cute little kids game and turned it into like, here's how we're going to control the world and get
Uh,
everybody on edge.
Absolutely. And, we have fact checkers. They may not know anything about facts, but by gosh, they will check them.
Do you know what? It's interesting. Fact checkers are not completely not a good data source, but you almost have to use two or three fact checkers to make sure that you're getting your facts checked without some sort of agenda attached to it.
Well, I don't know. Put it out there and see how it floats. Don't censor what I have access to if I want access to it.
Well, and I think for us, in terms of how we manage that, it's distinguishing between fact and opinion,
Right.
because so much of what we hear nowadays is subjective opinion. and
Well,
and facts are hard to verify. So somebody will say it's a fact, but unless you saw it, or unless you've got some other three other people who saw it from different perspectives, all agreeing that this is what happened, you got no clue.
well, and it may be true even then, but what, and that's what we do here.
Oh yeah,
We just voice opinions or try it.
audience, this is fact zone, by the way. This is whatever. Don't believe anybody else. This is and don't try and find anybody who actually agrees with us because you won't.
Well, good luck, because Scott and I don't agree on much. So where are you going to stand?
Right, right. We just agree on the fact that unless you critically think through things, you're in the end you're gonna get hosed.
That's what I wish we could do, and maybe we should do a show on it, Scott. How can we help people with their critical thinking? I know we touch on it from time to time, but we were brought up that way.
But they were hard lessons for me anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like when I didn't critically think, I found myself clinging to stupid and desperately trying to survive, selling something that just was, or doing something that was just absolutely not wise. And I think over time I realized that it's, slow it down, figure it out. And really I was disappointed that there are so few sources of good data that can help critical thinking. That's, to me, that's like the one thing I really struggle with society nowadays. It's like, can't someone just like be honest about something?
No, they really can't, and data is, most data is corrupt. It
And
just
most data, and exactly, most data is filtered to fit the agenda of the person sharing the data and the money that they want to make off it.
Well, yeah, and realize data is just a bunch of X's and O's, and if you get a few X's in the wrong spaces and a few O's are just dropped, it just becomes garbage.
Yeah, but would you rather eliminate that completely? That doesn't seem to make it better.
Well, there are points of, there's been throughout history, there's been orators and philosophers and leaders that have put some very remarkable papers and speeches out there. So I think as we absorb those, everybody absorbs those, they can start to find where they have a sovereign comfort if they can put some energy towards critical thinking. And critical thinking is not necessarily buying into everything those people say, but sorting it out, making logic of it in your own space.
Absolutely. Although I'm going to add the love thy neighbor as thyself, deep Christian state energy to this, and say that
I'm sorry.
if, as a result of your sovereign explorations, you're finding yourself not being able to accept some of the universal aspects of life, then you probably still got some work to do. You
Absolutely.
probably still got some stuff in you that you could get better at, and that's you and me and everybody else. I mean,
Absolutely. And
there
that's what
really
I was,
isn't an exception to that.
that's what I was just getting ready to say. Yeah, it's a work in progress for all of us.
Yeah, it is. So, do you want a kind of beginning decent list, and then maybe next week we could really talk about critical thinking, and I could bust some stuff out. But I've got some stuff that we can do.
Okay.
Um, so the first thing, like to protect your sovereignty, because again, it's yours. It belongs to you. You should enjoy it. Learn about the commonly used tactics that people use to mess with you. Divide and conquer. Whenever something's put into two dichotomous groups, left, right, up, down, Eagles, Chiefs, it usually isn't true, and it's worth alerting on at that point. Um, Things that manufactured consent. Have you ever heard about that? That's
Man,
that's where you use multiple news sources to. They did a really good job with the Iraqi war, right? It was like we should have been in Afghanistan dealing with the people who attacked our country, and instead we ended up, making a lot of money for people, breaking Iraq and then rebuilding it. So it was a good profit thing,
well,
but
yeah, but
it was never really true. All
Well,
the stuff they said was proven false.
it was pretty obvious to me, Scott, because I remember sitting at a table of family members saying that Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction, even though we were told that. Even though
Right, right.
and they asked me how I knew that. I said because they're showing us a video of a crop duster, and that's what they had.
And I saw that movie with Independence Day. I saw the Crop Duster movie. I know what that is.
Yeah, yeah, but it was just like, and I assured them all that Iraq didn't have that capacity. So I believe that our government knew that if they
Yeah.
could
So
think.
weapon fear, right? I mean,
Right.
that's what that is. They got us all really. It was a moment where we were already scared, and they used that, and then identified an enemy and got us all up in arms, and ultimately, again, they made a crap ton of money on it. It was a
No.
very economically advantageous adventure. Um, so learn about the tactics. Always think critically, and as you and I do all the time, question any narrative.
Yes.
Just like you question mine and I question yours. Question everybody's narrative because ultimately, it's if you want to do a little Latin lesson, cui bono, who benefits. So whenever there's a story out there, you have to stop and say, okay, interesting story. Who stands to benefit from this story being bought? And then what kind of sources do they bring? Is this somebody's opinion? Is this an unidentified person? Is it just a single government point of contact? Where are they building this information from? Okay, so that leads us to triangulating, and we've talked about that. You need several sources of information, and they should line up pretty good before you hop on and repost something. It's like you really want to see that if it's something that right, left, top, and center and bottom all agree on, then the odds are pretty good that it's good information. You know, um,
Even
there's a lot of falsification. There's a lot of things that are created now, like us.
yeah, I
Did you tell people I have AI yet or no? Are
no,
we keeping it under the DL?
I don't see the point of that, Scott, because I believe we all, and I did say all, have AI
Yeah.
and
I would.
ADHD, but I think that's how you say it. But I don't know.
You know what
Um,
though? Sad thing, if we all have ADHD, the sad thing is we all don't get Adderall.
I don't want Adderall. Thank you,
I'll
Scott.
take yours. That'll be fine. They'd be like, coffee? No, I'm good.
Well, and the only thing is, and my parting words will be: even when you sort it out, and even when you have put the truth in your sovereign self's mind, you do not have to share it or impose it.
No, absolutely not. But you have the comfort, I think, of knowing that you've come to a point of bigger truth,
Or
and you're
peace.
able to find and you're able to find comfort in that, even though you're surrounded by distress.
Right.
And that's kind of the trick to it. It's like, can you be okay with yourself, okay with the world, okay with supporting people who may be in distress, and not let that burn you out, tear you up, make you mad, all the other things that kind of environment is potentially going to do, because the environment wants to do that to you.
Well,
That's
because
that's the whole point.
Scott and I have both come to a inner peace or understanding that we don't agree with each other, and we're okay.
Yeah, it's all psyops. There are various teams.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Scott. I want to thank you for this. I think it was a good topic. I hope we did it justice.
Well, you know what? The comment thread's going to be really interesting this time, and hopefully, everybody will be challenged by this. That's the whole reason. Yeah, I wish we were doing this to make friends or gain followers or whatever, but I'd rather. It came. This discussion came up today in another place where it's like the truer I speak my mind, the more I try to kind of get on point on things, the less people like me.
Well, but we have, at least I have matured where I don't feel the need to share. what's in my mind. And people should rejoice.
Well, and I'm not in it for the likes, to be honest. It's
Right.
like it's we're gonna blink, this is all gonna be over, and the universe will have moved on to something else. So, if one person listens and says, you know what, I could be a happier person, I could be kinder to the world, I could be more at peace with myself. If I start looking at that criteria and start applying it to my own life, hey, that's a win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we better cut this out.
All right.
All right, everybody. This has been Justin Case and Scott bringing you American Consciousness. And I know consciousness is a bad word via YouTube and Google, but thanks for joining us. Remember,
You know
additional.
what though? Unconsciousness is worse. You'd rather be conscious than unconscious.
Well, I need to do an AI research paper on does Google understand what consciousness means?
No.
No. Okay.
I've got an answer. No.
Yeah, they don't care. All right. Thanks for joining us. Remember, additional information and links provided in this video is read more. Today's the day to subscribe to this channel. Please learn more about Scott when time permits, and I really encourage you to go check out his Facebook page.